Oh man, it's a crossover, and it's about teacher versus student. My man Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams has joined me, Tony Wiggins, for a crossover presented by Prize Picks. Let's get it started.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Make no mistake about it, it is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Rams for a crossover, our Thursday crossover that is presented by Prize Picks. Make sure you download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Now, y'all know the routine here on crossovers, man. It's all about kind of going behind the enemy lines, and that's what we love to do here. First, we both like to shout out the everydayers that join us each and every day on both Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Rams. We definitely appreciate you, and we don't take your time for granted. Those 30 minutes you spend with us really, really matter each and every day. And also, to anyone that's new, make sure you tap in here on Locked On Rams and Locked On Jaguars. We both like to thank you for listening to our shows and reminding you that you can follow our shows and hear our episodes, new episodes, ad-free daily on Amazon Music. Make sure you go and check that out. I'm going to give you a quick roadmap that Travis and I are going to do. Game prediction at the end, the winning formula. Right smack in the middle of the show is going to be game-changing matchups. We're going to start at the very top with the biggest stories. First of all, Trav, I'm a big fan of your work. I use you all the time on Locked On NFL and on the barbershop. I'm glad to finally squash it up with you here on the show, man.
Awesome, Tony. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. All right. Biggest storylines. First and foremost, Liam Cohen, he can't go a day without hearing how things used to be in LA. And,
Sure.
There's stuff on Twitter now where he was talking about how he learned from Sean McVay and all of that stuff. And then there's the Jalen Ramsey connection. We know Jalen was here and then went out there and won a Super Bowl with the Rams. So much is talked about Sean McVay being that coach that is basically the farm system for a whole bunch of coaches around the league. Travis, is that overblown or is he really that guy?
I don't think it's overblown at all, Tony. I think that the data kind of speaks for itself of all of the guys that have gone and coached under Sean McVay and then left and gone somewhere else to coach a team. With one exception, they've all been somewhere between pretty good to very good. The only guy that kind of flamed out was Brandon Staley with the Chargers. He's the only one that was here and went somewhere else, and it didn't work. Zach Taylor in Cincinnati took his team to the Super Bowl. We see what Matt LaFleur is doing in Green Bay. Kevin O'Connell's thriving in Minnesota. Wow. And Liam Cohen's got the Jags off to a 4-2 start. I kind of leave Raheem Morris out because he would have been a head coach before he came to Los Angeles. So, Raheem has kind of carved his own path to be sure. But, I don't think it's overblown. And keep in mind, this might be a little wrong, Tony, but it's close enough. Sean McVay is still like the third youngest coach in the league.
He's like a kid. It's like Benjamin Button or something. Everybody's giving him credit like he's an old man, right?
Yeah, that's what's so crazy. It's like if Andy Reid or Pete Carroll had this crazy tree, yeah, sure. They've been in the NFL for 150 years. Sean McVay's been here for 5 minutes, and the guy's got a tree. It's like a friggin' forest. It's just it's remarkable.
And there's another connection, and that's James Gladstone. Man, Stone, we call him Jimmy Stone, some of us do, because he is bold in the way that he approaches things, and he learned under Les Snead, and he doesn't make any bones about that, and he isn't shy about it, about how Les Snead taught him and nurtured him through this business, but also how he has his own imprint and way of doing things. Talk about that aspect a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. We were doing on Locked On Rams today, Doug McCann and I, we were talking about Les Snead today and the fact that we're getting, relatively close to the trade deadline coming up on November 4th. And we both expect the Rams to do something because every time the Rams are kind of close to, having a special season, they shoot their shot, man. They don't sit around and say, hey, let's hope it works out. They go, whether it's Odell Beckham Jr., whether it's Von Miller, whether it's Matthew Stafford, whether it's Jalen Ramsey, like when they think they've got a shot, they go for it. And I think that, for the Jags this year, I'd put them in the same boat because I don't think there is a best team in the league this year. I think there's like 10 or 12 pretty good ones. and then there's maybe 10 or 12 kind of so-so ones and maybe 10 bad ones. But the Rams and the Jags, I think, are in that category of they're pretty, nobody's great. Everybody's got some flaws, but if you could make a big move at the deadline and go from pretty good to very good, I expect the Rams to do it. And if Jimmy Stones is doing the same sort of thing, then I would expect him to do it too.
Well, he's clearing cap space, and he went up and made the deal for Travis Hunter, and he's clearing a bunch of cap space and cap room, and they've already traded Tyson Campbell for Greg Newsome, and so a little bit of that pedigree is showing up here in Jacksonville. I'm going to be transparent. I'm a big Rams proponent, and the Jaguar fans will be like, "What are you talking about?" Because on Locked On NFL, I have to make predictions, and I said the Rams basically went to Philly and were one guy away from making a play in the red zone, and then go out and get a one-guy Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Fame, and Devontae Adams, and I'm like, that's all they needed to do. They went back to Philly and had the game won in a revenge game, and then to lose it that way, almost like Baltimore and Lamar going and losing Buffalo again. I'm like, oh, man. And then they come out and basically have a stinker. I was actually in North Carolina traveling against their rival. What's going on with the Rams, man, and where are they in this one play away? We're almost there Super Bowl season of theirs.
I believe, I know this is a cliche, but I believe it to be true that, football is the ultimate team sport, and you win as a team, you lose as a team. All that's true. But here's another thing that's true, Tony. The Rams can't kick at all. And so, it's one of those things that I don't want to say it's one guy's fault, but if they make one of the two missed kicks against Philadelphia, they beat Philadelphia. If they make an extra point against San Francisco, they beat San Francisco. We saw it last week against Baltimore, where they missed another kick, and then on 4th and 3 from the Baltimore 6-yard line, instead of kicking a 35-yard field goal to make it a 3-score game, they went for it.
I thought it was a better odds.
Exactly right. And so that's one of those things that tells you what Sean McVay thinks about his kicking game. I'll be honest. It doesn't sound like, here we are on Thursday getting ready for the game on Sunday morning that they're going to make a change at this point. But I'll be honest. I'm surprised Chase Blackburn's still here. I'm surprised that Josh Carty is still here. They are. And until they can make some kicks for a few weeks in a row, I'm highly, highly skeptical. That's why that's what's going on with the Rams. They can't kick.
All right, Travis. So speaking of your first name, we got a guy here named Travis.
Yeah.
And before I turn it over to you, I'm just going to already segue. That's what you're going to ask me about, right? You're going to ask me about Travis.
Number one question.
All right, go ahead, man. Shoot it.
No, so what is it like having a guy that's trying to do this? Where is he better? If you had to pick one, where would you like to see him? Or do you like him continuing to try to do a little double duty?
I like the double duty, but I think, and Liam even kind of said this, he worked more on offense. And everyone basically looked at training camp when he was on offense more as, well, that was their intention. Liam kind of said in an interview, well, no, that's where he needed the most attention because maybe some people interpreted it as he didn't practice enough and he doesn't know how to play. Well, I look at it as a dude trying to learn an intricate playbook.
Sure.
And learning something different. He can roll out of bed and be a top 5 corner. I believe that from everything in me. And so far, his play has been indicative of that. However, there have been times when he hasn't been on the field in critical times on offense and defense. And I think the only reason he wasn't out there was because, well, he wasn't up to snuff because he's been spending so much time doing the other thing. Yeah. And then maybe the drive before that, they had ran him ragged a little bit and they needed to give him a little bit of a blow. At some point, they're going to have to figure this out. And they were transparent and they admitted, man, look, we don't know how this is going to look, but we'll figure it out. As long as they're winning, no one makes noise except Colorado Buffalo fans, of course. But when they lost the game the other day, now people are saying, okay, what are you doing? So I'll tell you what, we're going to get more into that in just a second. Because I want to leave all of that out there like that and just try to speedball it. We'll get more to that. More continuing here in just a second with a Thursday crossover presented by Prize Picks with Travis Rogers from Locked On Rams, Tony Wiggins with Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, I need to say that to my kids. But anyway, at Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint is simple, man. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered in the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. What makes it convenient by me is that price point. And I'm getting everything that I was getting before. I'm paying less, and it's absolutely outstanding. If you're ready to say yes to saying no, make the switch to Mint Mobile at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan, and taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed toward hundreds of hotels, airlines, and future rent payments, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. There are a whole bunch of neighborhood things that I use that I get rewards for. Dog grooming, my favorite pizza spot, taco spot, even cleaners, all of those things. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use that link so they know that we're the ones that sent you. All right, moving along here on our crossover Thursday here, presented by Prize Picks, Travis Rogers. Travis, what's the game-changing matchups for you as you come into this game?
Well, I think it depends on whether Puka plays or not, right? If Puka plays, then I think that, whoever Travis Hunter doesn't have, I think the Rams have an advantage, right? So whether that's Devontae Adams or whether that's Puka Nacua, I think the advantage tips are in. Now, if it's just one of those guys, then I think it's a more equitable matchup. The Rams receivers beyond those two guys are a bit of a mystery. Like Tutu Atwell, who he's not my favorite player in the league. Let's just put it that way. But he's actually been pretty good for the Rams this year. They didn't have him last week, and I think they missed him, especially once Puka got limited. So hopefully Tutu's available to go. Jordan Whittington, I do like. I think that I'd like to see him get some more opportunities. But, whether or not Puka can go, I think is the biggest variable for the Rams.
Jaguars are not falling into injured players. Last week, the Seattle Seahawks came in here missing 3 DBs in their starting lineup. And Liam Cohen came out and he started throwing. Their identity is running the football. And he even mentioned after the game the next day, he said something to the effect of, maybe we focus on our strengths more than just trying to take advantage of somebody else's weaknesses. Because when you do that, you actually lose your identity. Yeah. So I think that'll be a focus of the Jaguars. I just wanted you to know real quick, we ain't falling for that, okay, he's hurt stuff, because guess what? It'll be Tutu and Whittington, the kid from Texas, and Devontae Adams. That's still a pretty viable number 2 option.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, caught 100 balls last year, so we ain't falling for that one. But I want to talk about the offensive line. So many questions about the offensive line as well as the defensive backs for the Rams that hadn't really come into play too much this year, has it?
Well, the offensive line has been a little banged up, and we're already on some reserve guys. You got Warren McClendon out at right tackle replacing Rob Havenstein. You've got Justin Dedek, who had to fill in for Avila for a couple of days, but that really hasn't been a huge factor. Their line has been, Tony, it's been good enough. It hasn't been good, but it's been good enough. Like Matthew Stafford has not taken, a bunch of hits. He's not getting sacked a lot. Especially for a player that's in his 17th season. That's a concern, to be sure. The other thing you mentioned, though, I think is an issue. And the back end of their defense is not great. Now, Quentin Lake had his first interception of his career last week. He had a fumble recovery, and hopefully he's starting to get a little better. But they lost to Killer Witherspoon really early in the season and with a broken collarbone, and he's not coming back anytime soon. Hopefully by December, maybe he's back and ready to go. But, we were talking a little bit about making trades and being aggressive. I think if they do make a trade, if they do go, that's where they're going to go look is a corner. They can't cover very well. They just don't do that. So, that kind of swings it back to Trevor Lawrence and whether or not he can find the open guy. But so, I mean, Mac Jones, who you're a little familiar with, I'm sure, he looked like Joe Montana against the Rams a couple of weeks ago. Like he didn't miss a throw. So, Jared Verse has been great. Byron Young, I think, is second in the league in sacks, and they've been getting to the quarterback. But if that ball can get out quickly, I don't care how good that rush is because the Rams can't cover particularly well.
Yeah, I'm a big Verse and Fisk fan because I'm a Florida State supporter. So love to see my guys doing well, but I don't want them to do well this week. And they might have some success if the offensive line of the Jaguars plays the way it played last week. Walker Little was terrible. And I hate using adjectives like that because these young men are the same age as my kids and they got parents and friends that listen to these shows, but I'm going to always keep it real. He was pretty bad. The rest of the line was banged up. Robert Hainsey, the center, wasn't there. He came from Tampa with Liam Cohen. He's really been the star of the offensive line this entire season. He made the trip. He's on the plane, so we'll see if it's a game-time decision for him. Anton Harrison had been playing real well at right tackle, but he got banged up, and Pat McCary was banged up as well. The problem with the Jaguars, man, are pre-snap penalties. That's another thing that goes back to whether or not it's because, like last week, and I'm going to keep mentioning it just for clarity because people don't know. I'm not harping on the kid, but they scored a long chunk touchdown pass to Brian Thomas Jr. that was negated because Travis Hunter was lined up off sides. And it's hard for me to even fathom a wide receiver being lined up off sides. He says he checked with the ref, but you can also look and see where the ball is. Yeah. But the thing is those type of things have put the Jags behind the sticks all season long. And that's why it looks like in their games they're fighting and scrapping for everything, which they are. And they're a gritty bunch, but still, they got to stop killing themselves, man. And that offensive line, I think, is going to be tested with you guys up front. I just hope the Jaguars aren't too tempted to try to attack that secondary and do what they did last week and then lose their identity in the process.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that about those pre-snap penalties because, one of the things that the Rams have been really good at in the McVay area is not kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Like I am a fully 100% totally in the bag for Sean McVay. I think that the Rams are incredibly lucky that they hired him when they did. Yeah. They've got a not a good coach. I think they've got a great coach, and he's not even 40 years old yet. So who knows how long this will last? Maybe a very, very long time. But I say all of that to set up the fact that they have done a bunch of really weird stuff this year, whether it be play calling, whether it be, we saw a bunch of special teams penalties last week with the special teams failures. The phrase I've used on Locked On Rams is it's not rammy, right? Like the Rams, the Rams are very specific. They don't do dumb stuff, or they very rarely do dumb stuff. And they've done more dumb stuff in the first 6 weeks of the season than they typically do over the course of an entire season. And I'm really curious to see if that stuff gets cleaned up because, the Rams trajectory through the years is kind of typically start a little slowly. And then by the middle of the year, they start to find out what it is. And then at the end of the year, they're the proverbial team nobody wants to play. This year, they're off to a little bit better start, but they're still a little sloppy in some areas. So I think they've got a little bit of the same issues.
It's funny, man. These teams with these coaches, I call it revenge of the nerds. I grew up with these spiral notebooks, and I got some of them right here on my desk right now, full of draft information. I've been doing that for 40 years, right? Yeah. So I told Liam, I said, you got him. I told him and Gladstone, I said, when you got this job, I felt like I got it. We finally arrived, right?
We got one.
I think sometimes, though, guys that rely on that, they try to draft people that are just like that so that they can onboard faster and they can acquiesce to what they're asking. But sometimes their teams seem like they think too much. And that's where those pre-snap penalties, it's like it's so much going on where you're trying to get the advantage, especially with the pre-snap stuff that they're trying to show Trevor. it's like sometimes it's like, okay, calm it down a little bit. And I think Liam Cohen actually hinted that they were going to calm things down a little bit and kind of simplify it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There's a very funny video that I'm sure a lot of people have seen where Matthew Stafford's in the huddle and he's getting the play call in his ear. And he's like, yeah. And he kind of turns to the side. He's like, yeah, I got it. And then he turns to call the play and he's like, oh my gosh, he's still going. He's still going. And then finally he just like, stop. He goes, I got it. And then he turns back to the huddle a second time. He goes, he's still talking in my ear. And it's just one of those things where, and so look, Matthew Stafford is probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame. There's nothing he hasn't seen or doesn't understand. So he can process all of that. But I can't imagine when somebody who isn't operating at Matthew Stafford's level, when you get a telephone book worth of information dumped in your ear in 30 seconds, trying to process it and how to do that, I would imagine there would be some penalties.
See, you just told the Jaguar fans why you're getting all of these delays, because something that's been going on in Jaguar games and y'all won't experience it because it happens at home. The fans are actually telling Trevor 3, 2. They're telling it's so bad that when that thing gets under 7 seconds and he's sending people in motion and he's saying, man, check with me, we're good, all of that stuff. You hear the fans going, that's go. Now the insight is if Cohen is doing what McVay did, he's probably still talking. And I'm gonna stop talking right here for a second so we can get to segment 3 and get to some of these winning formulas. What do Travis and I believe that the Rams and the Jaguars have to do to win the game? I'll tell you about it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Rams crossover. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by Mazda. Man, nobody does it like Mazda. Mazda is the absolute truth because they craft cars for those that do more than simply move. They deliver confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. And you can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. I recently took my son out to look for cars, and man, we got stuck in that Mazda dealership, and I'm telling you, all of their vehicles, all the SUV crossovers, they have all-wheel drive. It comes standard. You can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, it's time to talk about the winning formula. What do the Jaguars and Rams have to do? I'll go beauty before age, or you're the guest, I'm the home team. So I'll let you go ahead and go first, since I'm the old geezer in here. There you go. Tell me what y'all got to do to win.
You see this here too, Tony, right? Like we both got a little white in our beard, so it's we're all good. We've earned it, right? We've earned this the hard way. I've heard you mention your kids a few times. I know that feeling, and yeah. That adds to all of this. I'll bring it full circle. If the Rams make their kicks, they're in really good shape. If the Rams can figure out a way to have clean special team operations, then I think they're in a good spot, even if Puka is unable to go, because Kyren Williams is having a really good year. If he doesn't fumble, they again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. They beat San Francisco, and it doesn't matter that they missed a couple of kicks, but Kyren Williams leads the league in fumbles since 2023. He's put the ball on the ground 10 times. They've lost 7 of them. So, that's not a bad day or two. That means you're a fumbler. And so that's always going to be something that you deal with him. But I keep coming back to the special teams. If they make their kicks, they're in really good shape. If they convert in the red zone, that's another thing that we haven't talked about a lot, that the Rams have kind of stalled when they've got inside the 20-yard line, and they've had to try some kicks. They've made some, they've missed some others, but they need to score touchdowns. There's a video that was going around on social media about Puka kind of getting into a bunch of his teammates on offense about their red zone production and how they need to do better down there, because they really get and again, this kind of goes back to another thing we talked about. McVay gets a little pass happy as the field gets short, and that's always one of those, man, what are we doing here? You've got a really good back in Kyron Williams. You've got another good back in Blake Corum. For whatever reason, Williams isn't available. You've got a guy that no person on earth can cover in Devontae Adams, and yet we're doing some weird play calls down there. So special teams obviously is always an X factor, and then converting those red zone trips into touchdowns.
Hey, man, I'm going to be transparent here. I said I was up in Raleigh when y'all played that Thursday night.
Yeah.
I had a little scratch on the Rams, and I was totally upset with what they were doing. And everything you just described, the short yardage situations, when they're going for it, the kicking game, all of that stuff came into play. And unfortunately, the Jaguars have had kicking problems. They missed an extra point and a field goal last week. Little Cam Little made a 70-yarder in preseason, and he made all of his kicks last year, and I actually drafted him like 9th in my fantasy draft. And I'm sitting there like, I'm going to see little Cam. We're going to have a little talk. But there's not the confidence in that kicking game that we had. We got all-pro punter. He got out-punted last week by the dude from Seattle. So it's like none of that stuff has worked. And then even though we do have one punt return, we've given up a lot of yardage on kick return. So the special teams is super, super important. I'm wondering if the student is going to try to get too fancy because he wants to impress the teacher. And this is a natural thing to do. Two guys that know each other very, very well. They understand the weaknesses. They understand the strengths. So for me, I'm going to get real cliche when I say this. To me, it's going to come down to what you talked about, special teams. It's going to come down to who doesn't turn the ball over. And then it's going to come down to execution. They know each other, like two people that's been married for a long time. I forget my blood pressure medicine, and my wife goes, here you go. I knew you were going to forget. It's just like that's what it is. So it just comes down to, I believe, who does what they're trying to do best and who doesn't make those mistakes. Commit turnovers. By the way, the Jaguars lead the league in taking the ball from other teams, so watch out for that. Yeah,
it's interesting because of that. Like you mentioned, the student and the teacher dynamic that's going to be at play here. McVay, you look at, and he and Kyle Shanahan worked together. One person never really worked for the other, but that's been a puzzle that's been difficult for Sean McVay to solve, is the 49er puzzle. It's been better of late, but that's been something that, if you're just kind of doing a percentage, that's been probably 60-40 towards the Niners. The one team that McVay has not figured out at all are the Green Bay Packers, and that's Matt LaFleur, somebody that worked for Sean McVay. And Matt LaFleur, and again, Packers have really good players. That helps a great deal, but it isn't the student-teacher thing has kind of gone both ways for the Rams. The Rams, he's beaten some of his guys, but some of his pupils have had his number along the way, so we'll see which side of the fence that Cohen falls on.
Yeah, man, we're going to have to see. All right, prediction time. I'm not going to tell you who's going to win, but I'm going to tell you it's going to end up 23-21. How about that? Right. And one of these teams going to make a kick. So that might lean towards the Jaguars. I heard you say,
I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Yeah. I like those numbers. I might go. The Rams are scoring points. They didn't do last week. It was a weird week against Baltimore. That was just a weird game. But Baltimore was missing everybody, and the Rams kind of took their foot off the gas. I don't expect that to happen again. I wanted to ask you this too, because the Rams haven't been to London in a long time. This is their first trip overseas in a long time. Do those games always get? Because I feel like when I watch them, they're kind of meh. They don't. There's not a lot of dynamic offense in those games. Am I remembering that correctly?
No. You're spot on with it. And then it's the grass. I lived in Europe for 3 years. It's always foggy. It's kind of like Seattle a little bit. You know what I'm saying? It's always kind of wet a little bit. But the Jaguars usually have an advantage because they sometimes play even 2 games over there. And they started this London trek. They were the first team because of Shad Khan's business dealings away from football. They were the first ones to do it. Now everybody wants to do it because they realize how good it is for them. But the thing is, there used to be this advantage. Here's the difference. This is a new staff. These are a whole bunch of new players. So when you start swapping people out like that, the only advantage you have is maybe a logistic one from the people who are in the building, the PR staff and the back office people that really know how to move and when to eat and when to do things. I would think that they have a little bit bigger advantage because they're only making a 6-hour difference. Y'all are making like a 9-hour difference. So that's a big, big deal. when it comes to it. The Jags left Monday. When did you guys leave?
Well, so the Rams stayed in Baltimore after they played the Ravens last week. So they just kind of set up camp there. They worked out there all week. They're going to leave on Friday. So they're going to. That's how they've kind of done all of these longer trips. They go in the day before, they sleep, they get up, they play, and they come home. So, Sean McVay's been pretty good at traveling west to east, but this is a little bit different. The one time that he's gone over there before, he had some success, but this is a different group. This is a group that is still kind of trying to find its way and has not looked like a Ram team typically does. So I like your prediction. I think that the Rams will probably score 27, 28 points somewhere along the way. But I don't like your prediction, Tony, when it comes down to whether or not it's a kick, because that already made me queasy thinking about it, because they haven't lined up for a kick all season that I felt good about.
No doubt about it, man. He is Travis Rogers. You can find him on Locked On Rams each and every day. I'm Tony Wiggins, Locked On Jaguars. And you can also find me on Locked On NFL in the afternoon barbershop. There's 2:00 Eastern time. I think that would be 5:00 on the West Coast. But Tyler Rowland is early in the morning. He wakes you up like a double shot of espresso twice a day on Locked On NFL, man. Make sure y'all check that out wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. Travis, has been fun. We're going to do it again, man. My people on Locked On NFL, they see you at least once a week. But now we've made this connection, man. So hopefully
we'll do it again.
Yeah, we'll do it again, man. That's Travis Rogers, Tony Wiggins. This is Locked On Jaguars, Locked On Rams crossover on Thursdays that is presented by Prize Picks. We are glad that you spent this time with us. We don't like wasting your time, and we appreciate you. We do not take you for granted. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.